One of the wonderful things about YouTube is that if you're on here long enough, you start to feel like a broken record because whenever you cover the news, there's this tendency for similar stories to emerge and just, things that are kind of reminiscent of something from the past. So when I spread the video I did about the 717 billion military budget, the main thing I would always say is that you have these domestic issues that conservatives often deride as being too costly, and they'll bring up the deficit. Oh my God, the liberals are going to bankrupt us and blah, 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 blah. But I've seen very few of them, if any at all, condemn the overusage, or rather the usage of hundreds of billions of dollars for conflicts that are, they're never ending, for one reason being that we have heads of state heads of states that are not diplomats, so they don't even know how to talk to each other. Secondly, because there's a profit to be made from being involved in wars, especially when the people who are making the money do not have to worry about their family members being murdered or massacred, whether they're a U.S. soldier or they happen to live in one of the countries that the U.S. decides to bomb. But anyway, let's get into the new, wonderful, even bigger budget. The Pentagon is getting everything it asked for the White House's annual budget request, and then some. U.S. President Donald Trump will submit a budget to Congress on Monday that includes a sizable $750 billion for fiscal year 2020 for national defense spending, of which $718 billion will go to the Pentagon, a U.S. defense official confirmed to Foreign Policy. America's annual national defense budget funds the Department of Defense, as well as nuclear elements of the Department of Energy, such as nuclear warheads and reactors used on Navy ships and submarines. With this year's budget request, which is subject to congressional approval, the Pentagon is actually getting even more than it had hoped for. While not a huge leap, this figure is more of an increase than budget planners initially expected, reflecting growth of 4.7% over last year's top line. Defense officials have been planning for a $733 billion overall national defense budget, which would have been an increase of 2.4% over last year's $716 billion top line. The additional money will be sprinkled throughout the Defense Department coffers, which includes overseas operations, the four military services, and other various agencies, the official said. Some of the extra money may go to replenishing the 3.5 billion for military construction funding Trump wants to tap to pay for his long-promised border wall with Mexico. That's a significant part. We'll get into it in a few moments. The hike in defense spending comes as part of a broader budget proposal to slash domestic spending, including significant cuts to the Department of Education, Health and Human Services, Interior, State, and others, according to reports. Still, this year's budget proposal is a welcome surprise to military planners, as the president last year seemed to waffle between growing the defense budget and cutting it. In October 2018, Trump called for budget cuts of 5% across the board, which have included a reduced defense budget. But then, in December, Trump reportedly agreed to then Secretary of Defense James Mattis's request for a $750 billion top line for defense. I'll read your comments in a moment, Dirk. I just have to finish this. One significant shift in this year's budget request is a massive hike in a controversial war account that the White House's own budget director, former Republican Representative Mike Mulvaney, has criticized as a slush fund. The fund he oversees, Contingency Operations (OCO) account, is not subject to mandatory congressional spending limits. Of the total $718 billion request for the Defense Department, $165 billion will go to OCO and $9 billion in additional emergency account, while $544 billion will go to the base defense budget, according to the official. CNN reported the breakdown March 8th. Congress still has the final say on how much money goes toward defense, and it is not at all clear that lawmakers will approve the high number. A Democratic-controlled House in particular is likely to oppose higher defense spending without an equal increase in non-defense spending, something fiscal hawks on both sides of the aisle will never go for. And already, some Democrats have denounced Trump's reliance on OCO's gimmick to circumvent the budget gaps. If true, this is nothing more than a blatant attempt to make a mockery of the federal budget process, obscure the true cost of military operations, and severely shortchange other investments vital to our national economic security, said House Armed Services Committee Chairman Adam Smith and House Budget Committee Chairman John Yarmuth, both Democrats, in a February 25th statement about reports of the dramatic increase to OCO funding. But others, such as Senator James Inhofe, the Republican chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, are open to a massive war budget. Even though this year's request is a significant hike, it is not as big of a jump as Trump's first budget submission, which increased defense spending 10.4% from 634 billion in fiscal year 2017 to 700 billion in fiscal year 2018. That's enough of that article. So Dirk writes, "Oh, you want to take money from the military? You must hate the troops, terrorists." With just the increase, we can have free college. Lots of people can go to college because the money is they choose military. I think the U.S. is the only place where you can cut education, other extremely important things, and shove the money to the military. Yeah, but one of the reasons they're able to do that is not because it's such a popular thing. It's because most people don't even know about this. And like I said before, whenever you try to get people involved and tell them, hey, look, they're going to cut the education department and these other programs and various departments while increasingly pumping one for conflicts that we still don't win year after year, the reaction they usually have is, oh, well, that kind of sucks. And then they never do anything about it. They never complain past when you complain, basically. So that shows you how much of a non problem this is for them. But I wanted to mention that in this article, they really try to, and I don't think foreignpolicy.com, or I think it's .com, is as bad as the, other websites where they try to ham up this whole Democrat and Republican feud. Because if you look at the military budget, the 717 billion one, it was only, if you recall, Dirk, 8 people that voted against it, 9, 10, some small number, and everyone else joined together. So it's very clear that there is bipartisan support for being a warmonger that stays in conflicts forever. I wonder what Congress approval rating is, maybe 18% or less. Yeah, well, that's why, again, Americans are hypocrites. We give Congress an approval rating that's lower than a fifth of us liking them, and then a majority of its members get reelected every 2 to 6 years. So they're not consistent, but that's to be expected. It's the U.S. after all, where literally everything is backwards and we live in the twilight zone and nothing makes sense. But think how crazy this is. When you go on these websites like Twitter and these other places and you talk about how stupid this budget is, what do these people tell you if they're a Trump supporter? Oh, we need to have a huge military budget because supposedly this will help us win these wars. And then what's happened? A year passes in his tenure, we're still in every single war. A second year passes, he promises to get out of Syria, he stays in there. So you can actively see that they're trying to feed you this narrative that's just proven to be not true. I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm calling it now, if we stay in every single war that we were in under Obama, under Trump. He hasn't ended a single one. And these budgets are doing nothing. God, I feel like a broken record every time I talk about this stuff because defense contractors are not invisible men. It's actively known that politicians take bribes. So when they fund the campaigns of Democrats and Republicans, it's very natural for the people they funded the campaigns of to scratch their backs of their friends after they get in office. And how do you do that for a defense contractor? Oh, I know. You give them more money to benefit from in their little stupid never-ending wars. It's not hard to figure out, and that's why when I watch a lot of Trump's fans, right? And people who like the Democrats, people, just anyone who thinks one side is better than the other. I'll mention something like this and I'll say, hey, look, they're both voting for this. If you want your side, like for the Democrats to be the resistance, then tell them not to vote the same way as the Republicans. If you're a Republican and you want your side to be seen as different from the Democrats, don't vote the same way as them. Say, hey, look at how irresponsible these Demo clowns are. Look at how they have no problem crashing spending and spending and spending on stuff that we can't afford. And I disagree with my president for doing that, even though we're from the same party. They could say that in 2 seconds, but why don't they do that? Because Republicans don't care about the deficit. They only whine and cry and moan and holler about the cost of anything when it's a domestic program. They support austerity. That's why when that stupid tax cut that Trump signed gave $1 trillion to the what was it, the top 1%, they were fine with that because they said, look, these are my rich overlords that give me cash, so it's all good. But you never see anyone complain about any of this stuff. They want to permanently occupy the war zones. Yeah. Well, that's why I said that uh, you had Trump do the complete backflip. Oh, we're getting out of Syria. Oh, we're going to keep 200 troops there. That's our withdrawal. And remember, we have troops in over 100 different countries and over 900 military bases, and they still want to do more. Trump's national security advisor, Bolton, still wants to go to war with North Korea and Iran, tried to blow up the peace talks. But again, you never see any of Trump's sycophant fans saying, hey, we don't like this national security advisor that is trying to keep our president in the wars of all the person before him who we claim was inferior to the current one. And why is that? Because they have no problem going along with their their little, orange savior and never critiquing him on anything. That's why politics is so disingenuous, because you have these people who try to convince you or myself, oh my God, my side is better. And then they can't even critically think about anything relating to that person. I mean, I don't like, when have you ever seen any of these fans of Republicans, fans of Democrats, fans of Trump, whoever the hell, say, hey, look, I don't want you to go down in history as a warmonger, so please vote against this. Let's get together and make our favorite senator, our member of the House, our president, whoever the hell, try to change their opinion on these conflicts. They never do that. They're fine with just blindly going along with whatever the person who's in power wants to do. As long as it means being able to say, I'm part of their team and we're going to fight back against the person before or the other side. That's the most important thing to them. That's why, you know, Congress is so stupid, because they try to convince you when they give these speeches and these public appearances. We're here to help people, and this is our proposal. These are our ideas. But notice how it never goes beyond the basics of just common sense. Kind of like how with gun control, right? You didn't see a single hearing held by Republicans in 8 years of them having the House on that topic, even though there were a bunch of mass shootings. And remember, the hearings automatically mean we're going to get, a repeal of the Second Amendment or anything like that. It means just getting together and hearing people out about this topic. They didn't have a single one. Why? Because they don't care. That was a major crisis that they got away with for almost a decade, completely ignoring, with no electoral repercussions. I mean, let's not forget the year before they were captured at the Senate, we had Sandy Hook, where all these children got their brains blown out. And it's the same thing here. We had Trump run on this idea of Obama being this total complete disaster. And then what does he do? He keeps all of his wars going. And then all of his little sycophant dingbat supporters that don't have brains that are the size of my pinky finger will then go and support him. No, but Dirk, when does this end? I had one of his support. I'll never forget this. I had a supporter of his who identified as being, let's just say, part of the LGBT community, right? So that already should tell you how backwards this is, because you had Trump say during the campaign trail, "I will protect the LGBT community." Then he, does the transgender military ban. We can go down the list. But this is a person who I have this conversation with, and I mentioned all of the things that I want Trump to change. I mentioned wanting him to go after the banks, to end the wars, um, to propose a healthcare plan that at least is not to the right of Obamacare. Just a list of things. And I say this to her. Nowhere. It was around September or October of last year. So at this point, Trump's been in office for maybe 22 months, 21 months. And her response to me after hearing the specifics of what I want. This isn't Trump derangement syndrome, because I'm saying, hey, look, if he does these things, which he has the power to do, and that, the person before him didn't do, I'll give him credit. I won't complain about him. If these particular things are done, and I give a list of them. Their response to me is, how do you expect him to do all of this in one day or quickly? And I had to get away from, and this is why I don't like to talk that much to people online. I had to step away from the computer screen because I was literally looking at ignorance personified. This person is so entrenched by their favorite clown that they have to now create a scenario where the most powerful man on the planet, right? Not only can he not do anything to stop any of this stuff, but he also in 20 plus months can't get out of a war. He can't just declare, yeah, we're sick of this. There's no reason for me to be over there. In over 20 months. This isn't like, the day after he was inaugurated. This is over 20 months into his tenure. And this person says that to me. But again, that's when I realized that his backers do not have critical thinking skills. And this is something that a lot of people like to see. Um, well, Dirk, that's the thing, that when he doesn't talk about the issue, that means he doesn't care about it. And one might, you'll have his supporters argue that's good because it means that could change. But in reality, it actually means that he can get away to them with not bringing it up. And anyone who brings it up, they just tell to go screw yourself because you're not worshiping Orange Daddy. But going back to what I was saying, you literally will have his supporters who will sit here and they will make excuses for anything and everything. These are the same pricks who, when Bernie mentioned wanting to do anything with a social program, would tell him, cost too much. How are you going to afford? Blah 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 blah. But then when it's this military budget, because their favorite guy decides to do it, oh, let's go, let's have it. I mean, what is this? And guys, it's a level of hypocrisy that is so transparent and so easily seen through that I just can't take it seriously anymore. Like I read their comments and I almost think someone is like just trolling. Like there's no way someone actually thinks that way. I think I told you about the one story of the person who uh, told me on Twitter that every homeless person is the way that they are because of their stupidity or whatever. And then I typed in his name on Google and found that he had a GoFundMe begging for a couple $100s. Like it's that kind of stupidity in the responses by these people that just makes it to where I can't buy what they tell me because it doesn't make sense in tandem with what they're stating. I mean, holy hell. This person really told me that in over 20 months of being in office, he hasn't had enough time to do any of this stuff. I said, look, prick, there's a reason they prioritize the first 100 days of a presidency. That's when the things that are most important to that president are typically started or formed. So if they're not addressed during those first 100 days, let alone the first 2 years of his tenure, they're never going to be addressed. I guarantee you that whether Trump stays in office for a term or a couple of months, if the Mueller thing is really anything, which I don't think it is, or 6 years, we are never going to hear him mention wanting to cut down the military budget. We are never going to see him get out of any of these conflicts. We are never going to see him talk about a healthcare option that is not the crap that we had, the proposal he had before. It's going to stay the exact same. And he's going to get away with it because he has a fan base that, in order to continue to support what they feel is the winning team, has turned their brains off and have decided, hey, look, we don't need to think critically about anything. This is a big question. I think cutting is a start. Too much money goes into military. That's my point. But again, the same person, right? The same party of quote unquote fiscal responsibility is completely bootlicking for this. I guarantee you, when this goes up in the Senate and it gets approved overwhelmingly, the only two Republicans who you might see actually vote against this are Rand Paul and Mike Lee. They're the only two because they're the only actual ones who believe any of that crap they told you about how much stuff costs. Because Envoy, we're not really in. Listen, if you believe that thing about the debt, which I'm not saying that we have some. Well, actually, I kind of am saying we have an unlimited access of money. But just ask yourself, if we're in such this big financial turmoil, how the hell do they keep affording all this other stuff? Can you explain that to me? Can you reason that to yourself? If we are in such a financial struggle, where the hell are they getting 750 billion from? In addition to the 717 billion from last time. Where is that money coming from? Dirk says, "How brain dead do people have to be to say that?" Yeah, that's my point. This person is someone who is afflicted by the same economic disparity that is, causing what was it, 76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, but because they don't, and this is kind of what I'm trying to explain. When I mention that statistic, the reason that is so jarring, or at least it's disturbing, is the fact that you can have people who are in that scenario and they'll still vote for Trump because they have convinced themselves that something is going to change, even though nothing has. We had ridiculous military budgets under Obama. We were bombing all these different countries under him, and it's all continued over the last 2 years. Amway says that's true. How do we get all this money? What's your take? I think we have an unlimited supply of cash that the people that are in charge only roll out when it's time to do something that's convenient to them. And then also, and I can't believe I actually did forget about this, and I mentioned it was a significant part. In that military budget, they want 8 billion. Yeah, military industrial complex, Dirk. You it was on the tip of my tongue and you got it out first. But in that new budget, right, he wanted over 8 billion for the wall. And there's two problems with that. First of all, I thought it was 5.7. Secondly, if this gets votes from Democrats like Pelosi, like Schumer, which the previous military budget did, that means they were never actually opposed to the wall to begin with. See, if I, as a person who is so basic as to only have the power of filming a video from my bedroom, can see through the fact that he's trying to sneak the funding for the wall into this, there's no way in hell that members of Congress can't come to the same conclusion and not vote for it this time around. It was Eisenhower, yeah, Dirk. It's correct. Envoy says, funny how money is not going into helping the veterans and the veterans centers and home. Well, the people that serve the country. That's my point, Envoy. It seems like people don't want to accept the fact that the U.S. is, like, they talk about Saudi Arabia abusing its people, anti-free speech laws, but the U.S. abuses the majority of its citizens from birth. I mean, think about this. You have 27% of the homeless being veterans. So a quarter of the people who are homeless, who are in the streets, who can't find anywhere to live, are individuals that went over and fought in some banana war and happen to survive, then come back and get treated like crap. And then the best thing they can get is a 2% pay increase after 2 years of having Trump. And now he can brag. And this is how stupid his supporters are. He gets to brag about having the first pay increase in 10 years, but then these douchebags won't even look up by how much it was. Imagine if I said, if I was governor of California, hey guys, I'm governor. I increased the minimum wage for the first time in 10 years. And then you go, okay, well, how much was it by? Oh, 5 cents. Well, that's crumbs. That's nothing. But because he's slick and he knows that these people do not actually take the time to look anything up, he gets away with it. No problem whatsoever. No pushback. No, oh my God, how could you, just barely pay the people who went overseas and, fought in a lot of cases could have been killed for doing that for us. Doesn't matter. Envoy says they suffer from PTSD, having missing limbs and everything. Yeah, they're screwed up and they're completely ignored. But like I said, they're a part of the different groups of people who get treated like crap by the US and the people at the top every single day. This is the exact same fate that befalls teachers. Think about this. These are the people who educate the next generation of individuals that are going to be politicians, that are going to be anything you can think of. And they get crap wages. And then when you say, hey, let's give them a pay increase, here comes Trump supporters telling you we can't afford it. Here comes Trump supporters telling you, oh no, we don't care about you guys because every single one of you, quote unquote, gives the your students a liberal education. I mean, they've really convinced people that there's no such thing as conservative teachers. And then think of how stupid they are for saying this, right? They know that when most people hear something, right, there's a chance that they won't immediately buy it. For example, I could come on here and I could tell Envoy that if you go outside tomorrow, the sky is going to be orange. He doesn't have to believe that, and he probably won't believe that. He's just hearing me saying that. So if I, as a college professor, say, "Hey, I'm going to vote for Sanders because yada yada yada," or "I'm going to vote for Harris," or "I'm going to vote for Trump," or whoever the hell, the students who are in my class have the option of ignoring or not letting their opinion be influenced by what I have to say. It's not, oh, I said this, so now that this ringing endorsement is going to cause every student to become a little liberal. All right, well, Envoy, I don't know what else to tell you. I think I made my point. If you can't get it, I don't. I'm out of words. All right, Envoy says, which lets me wonder if there's an ulterior motive going on. Yeah, the ulterior motive is that these senators only pay for this crap, or only support these defense budgets because defense contractors, by virtue of Citizen United, let them donate to their campaigns or donate to their campaigns. And then they get some money from all the bombs and bullets that are dropped during these banana wars. At least the number of progressive minded people are rising, but in the future, it maybe will be too late to try to fix. Well, that's my point, Dirk. That you think about this. I can get on here, I can stream about how stupid this stuff is and talk myself off for another 2 hours, but I can't, as you know, since I'm not a member of Congress, vote against any of it. And if I try to launch a campaign to do anything about it, I only have maybe like what 3, 4 people that regularly watch my stuff that would actually maybe donate. In an era where we know that over 90% of the people that win are the one who raised the most money out of all the candidates. My point is, the system has caused it to where I literally have it's possible, but a very minute, slim chance of actually being able to become a part of it and cause the change that is needed. So it's going to continue to be a thing where there's a couple of people in there that are actually decent, and then there's a bunch of commentators who call it out, and that's about it. And like all these stupid networks, they won't say anything. All they're doing is talking about AOC for the 900,000th week in a row, along with Ilhan Omar, and then that's it. Nothing about the budget, nothing about how we're going to afford this, nothing about who are we depriving these funds from? Nothing, just not a single thing. And like I said, this would be a major scandal if a Democrat or a progressive said, "Hey, let's give 700 billion to education or infrastructure, which we have a D plus in, but nobody cares about that." It would be on the headlines. Fox would be losing their minds. Hannity would go insane. But because it's the military budget and we're so used to just being at war forever, not a word, nothing. Nothing whatsoever. Just business as usual. Nothing. I mean, just the hypocrisy never dies. People just keep on depriving us of cash, and the few of us that care aren't able to do anything other than try to alert other people to it. Then when you tell other people, it goes in one ear and out the other. They're not even thinking about it by the next day. I did think about having a campaign of just knocking on doors throughout my state and trying to inform people of this. But the problem with that is I keep seeing the same reaction. The person either says something stupid like, "Oh, well, they got to protect us," or they say, "Wow, that's dumb," but they don't get involved themselves. Like there's no kind of urgency slash fury in their position. So that means it's going to stay the same because the people are complicit with the stupidity of having a ridiculous military budget that deprives every other department of anything or adequate funding. Dirk says the message is maybe we have to wait for Senate to be with props to invented, not this year. I hope someone pops it because we're literally just going in a cycle of something stupid happens. I talk about it for 10 to 40 minutes, and then I go on social media, mass share it. I get stupid stuff written back to me that I barely look at anymore because I just my opinion of these people is not even it's below, it's like to the earth's core at this point. But it never stops because, and this is the point I'm trying to make, even if you get a progressive in the White House, um, you're still stuck with a Congress that's full of a bunch of defense contractor bootlickers. So what do we do? I mean, I really have no clue at this point. You support the few people that actually try, and then what else? Envoy says, I think the corporations are going to continue to gain power, and they are the ones who have the politicians in their back pocket. Exactly. Um, but again, like I stated before, you have these massive budgets of hundreds of billions of dollars, right? And the people choose to not pay attention to any of it. Because just as I was able to find this article and be able to get rallied up about it and talk about it and try to share the same thing with the rest of you, other people are not going to do that. I mean, what's trending right now? What's actually being talked about? We had some actor from Empire get in trouble for faking a hate crime or whatever, which again is nowhere near as important. That one person's lie is nowhere near as important as a defense budget that is literally sucking dry the rest of the departments of proper funding, which directly afflict regular people. Dirk says, wait for the market to crash. Oh, yeah, I can't wait. Because every time you try to tell these people about the boom bust cycle, they completely throw it out the window, the wazoo, because it doesn't fit their narrative. They want to believe that, Trump is the savior they've been waiting for. And then the only thing that's going to maybe slightly peel away at that is when there's undeniable. And even then, they're still going to blame the Democrats anyway. So there's nothing. That's why I said it's the never-ending cycle of just people lacking critical thinking skills. Dirk says he fought himself and millions cared to know about his stupid situation. Yeah, but that's my point. That why is it we have millions of people who pay attention to what some public figure does versus a thing that affects millions of people and what that large sum of the population does? Envoy summed it up perfectly. Dems blame Republicans, Republicans blame Dems. It's just stupid at this point. Well, that's my point, but also the people are fueling this because they'll still, like I said before, I hate the fact that we have blue and red states because it means one party can stick an R or a D next to their name and then they have some 90+% chance to win the election. And they get so comfortable, they really think they can just feed you anything. The person can act any way they want and it's perfectly fine. That's why I really am just out of ideas. That we sit here and we talk about how stupid this stuff is, and I try to present I guess, coherent, recurring manner. But what else beyond this? Because I don't want the full extent of what I do in relation to any of these topics to just be, oh, let's do a stream and talk about it for however many minutes. We're just gonna have to import the yellow vest soon enough. Because there is no, like, I really can't think of a good ending to this. We have a military budget that's even more than the one that drove me crazy enough to go on Twitter for the first time in like 2 years and actually actively be on there. And we have a Congress that, because we have bipartisan corruption via defense contractor, is going to pass it overwhelmingly, just like they did with the last one. And what's worse is that the same Democrats who are whining about this border wall are going to vote for this, even though it has the funding for that in there. while knowing that it's there because they don't care about anything other than getting reelected and trying to get in front of a camera every 5 seconds. So is there anything else you guys have to say? We can cut it off here. Just people don't care. Oh, Dirk, you didn't hear? He's thinking of running for a second time. I don't. Let me see if I can find that article for you. I think he will. If he wins the Republican primary again, he will win, and it'll be no better for that state. So let me tell you something. That whenever people are willing to invest themselves in garbage, I say let them have it. If you want to have a little stupid governor that tries to cut the minimum wage along with your health care, like has happened in Arkansas, not the minimum wage, but the health care, so the Medicaid work requirements, and you only vote for this person just because they have an R by their name and the D is like the D for Democrat means devil. Go ahead, let you destroy your state. I just feel sorry for the people who aren't as stupid as you and decide to, just happen to live there via being born there, something they can't control. And if they're underage, in a lot of instances, can't escape from because they don't have the funding for it. And again, all this little stupid stuff about the military budget and people trying to say you're unpatriotic. I wish I could see the statistic of people who back this. I'll just call it what it is. Mind-numbingly retarded budget. How many of them are going around trying to help the 27% of the homeless that are veterans? How many of them are housing people that served overseas and got paid a crap wage after losing a rib or two, or a rib or some other part of their body, and are actively trying to help them? No, Dirk. I hope he runs, and I hope that he wins the Republican primary, because if he wins that, he's going. Because see, look again, there is no downhill for U.S. politics. It's literally just have the right thing by your name, and people will take anything. Why do you think Northam is still sitting up as governor of Virginia after being as exposed as he was? Why do you think that they're more concerned with trying to go after the lieutenant governor for allegations that have no weight to them, that only came after a decade or so allegedly after they happened, where the person decided to come out against him again after conveniently looking at the fact that it was very likely he could become governor? Why do you think that? Because there is no bottom of the barrel. This is the lowest we can go. Why do you think we can have a Republican member of the House, Scalise, get shot and then still tell you we don't need gun control? Why do you think we can have a military budget before of 717 billion and soon 750 billion that add together to God knows what number, and then still have pricks telling you that the Democrats are trying to bankrupt the country while that's being proposed by Republicans? So I said we live in the twilight zone. Literally everything you can think of that's backwards, just say that and it explains it all away. I wouldn't be surprised if I walk out of my house tomorrow and there's some naked person, I don't know, hovering in the air. Like that's literally what I think of all this stuff as. Just like, and I hope Envoy's still in here. Just like the chick thing. Why do you think most of these guys on the computer couldn't get a girlfriend? It wasn't because they were ugly. It wasn't because they don't have social skills, because if they didn't, they wouldn't be able to speak to other people in their lives. It was because we have a society that is pro-feminist extreme that says, hey, as long as you have a vagina, you can leech off of other people. You can get hundreds of views on social media, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or wherever the hell, by putting up a picture of your breast or showing your body off in exchange for actually having an intellect or saying something people think is worth listening to. It's all of this is easily explained away when you just stop and think about it. Why do you think Trump can cheat on all three of his wives and then still have a majority of evangelicals supporting him? Oh yeah, or Twitch, yeah. Which I was actually on there. Well, we'll talk about that maybe. I don't want to give that person any more coverage than they've already had, so I'm good. Always says, do you think that that will change? What, any of it? Yeah. If it would change if the people, if see again, because the U.S. is so divided and people are so like not willing to come together for a greater good. It's always going to it's always going to remain this way on those circumstances. You heard about the guy who subscribed to me after the romantic stuff caught a bunch of traction, and then when I started talking about my critiques of Trump, decided to spam me for 3 or 4 days with banners supporting Trump's reelection because they don't have the cognitive ability to think. Wait a second, this is one of the few people that I actually like talking about this subject, but because they don't agree with me on every single thing, screw them. The pro-feminist society where women dominate, yeah. But here's the only thing I like about how things are currently is that Me Too allegation stuff. It doesn't work with most people because if you look at the fact that Trump still won, even though I thought those allegations against him were dumb anyway, but the fact that he still was able to get millions and millions of votes shows you most people don't care about that. It's just crap, and it is crap. They're right to not care. God, you want me to feel sorry for you after you know how crazy this is? I'm supposed to feel sorry for you enough to not vote for the person I want. But then if I go out and have anything happen to me, you pricks disappear. Not you two, but just like think how crazy this is, right? You have these people come out and say, "Oh, you need to feel sorry for the women that were abused on Bernie's campaign, even though it took them 2 years to say anything, and they did it right before he announced his second one." It's like, no, where were they when I was getting called a potential school shooter and all this other crap on YouTube for saying that I was tired of any of this stuff? Nowhere to be seen. Where were they when Dirk was trying to get some views on his channel or Envoy? Nowhere to be seen. So don't come to me asking for empathy or sympathy when you literally did the exact opposite in droves. Captain Marvel got great reviews. Always says made a lot of money. Yeah, but anything that Hollywood produces is bound to get millions of dollars. People like will literally go to a theater and they'll say, "Well, that title looks kind of interesting. Let's go see that." Same thing with this budget, or rather, the reverse is with this budget. If I made a film called what is this 750 billion, and it was in a theater, and it was literally just me sitting here in front of this screen talking about how stupid Trump's new budget is. Again, it's in a theater, right? It would get millions of views because people only go to whatever they are used to going to. And when you try to show them something different, when you try to say, "Hey, look, check this out. This is kind of important," they don't care. It doesn't matter to them. So they're gonna let their tax dollars be wasted bombing, let's see, 7 countries, keeping troops in over 150 different countries, funding over 900 military bases. Uh, need I go on? It doesn't matter to them. So thank you for watching. We'll probably do something else tomorrow. I'm tired of actual issues. I think it's funny. You go on places like Twitter or Facebook or any of these other websites, and the only thing people are talking about is this stupid election and the wall, and then maybe Omar, and then that's it. It's all just personality. It's never discussing any issues. And if it is, it's just people going around screaming, Democrats propose this, that means it's automatically bad. So just screw them, man. Again, we in a normal society, if we had one where people did not bootlick for one party or the other, most people would say this is stupid and we need to stop spending so much money on bombing a bunch of places that have done nothing to us. But because we live in the Twilight Zone, we're stuck with fools and the US is going to hell.